keep in the spirit of this weekend, I'd like to start with a short kirtan and then have some reflections from the weekend from anyone who's here, just to augment any of the points that we're taking away the experience. The weekend or tonight, anyone else? Namo Vaiśeṣika Kṛṣṇa Krishna Putale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Vaśeṣika Satare Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda. For those of you who are new or new-ish here, these prayers are preamble to chanting the Mahamantra, which is deemed in the ancient wisdom literatures, scriptures that teach about self-realization and how to come to the perfection of life, honoring the servants of God who have brought him here to the world, specifically the founder of this organization. His name is Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, and he's seated on this ornate seat called the Vaiśeṣika, which is given to one who brings the message down. It's been passed down through many generations, the teachings of Kṛṣṇa, and it goes from a teacher to a disciple. And there are some within the line of teachers and disciples who are noticeably luminaries, who are able to do much more than most, and arguably one of the most prolific of all time has been the founder Acharya of this organization, because he took the teachings that had been extant in India for many, many generations, and he was able to express them to a Western audience. And he's known as the founder Acharya, the one who sets the tone and the method to follow. And obviously the founder was the one who started this specific branch of what is called Gaudiya Vaishnavism. And the next mantra we sang, Krishna means the most recent incarnation of Krishna, or avatar, which means one who crosses from a higher level to the lower level to help us out. And his name is Sri Krishna Chaitanya, but he comes with his associates in order to teach by example how to perform this process of bhakti yoga. So it's a way of entering into any spiritual conversation or any process to acknowledge those who have given it to us, because one must, to receive, have an open heart, a heart opened by gratitude. And it also acknowledges it's not an intellectual process per se. It's a process in which when we approach somebody who has knowledge and spiritual acumen, when we go in a humble way and we serve and we ask relevant questions, then such a person can pour out the contents of his or her heart and offer them to us. I had an experience once when I was learning an instrument, one of these, drum that Madhuri Puri has in the front row. And I was sitting in front of my teacher. After 3 days, I had this visceral feeling that it was like an airdrop. Is anybody familiar with that on the iPhone? Only one person, and he's an engineer. And there is a way in which we can receive knowledge from others. So we started that preamble to offer respects, and be very open to whatever is passed down to us through the great teachers. So that's why we start with those prayers. And the mantra that I'll sing now, you're all familiar with, but it's worth just examining it for a moment. What is it? Well, they're names of Kṛṣṇa, which is indicative of the fact that he's a person. But he's not an ordinary person. He's the source of everything, the source of all of us. We're all parts of him. And if you were to fill out a immigration form and it came to a section on it that asked your occupation, you wouldn't be wrong if you put appreciator. And if you hand it into the immigration officer when you're coming through the airport, they might ask you, and why did you put appreciator? That's your occupation? And you could truthfully answer that, yes, that's my eternal occupation. In fact, the Srimad Bhagavatam mentions that the only duty of a human being is to inquire about the Supreme and then appreciate. And it's good work if you can get it, right? Say yes.
Yes.
So there's a way in which when we sing the names of God, it's called kirtan. It comes from the word kirti, which means fame. And there's an idea of this person is so wonderful that we're singing about that we just want to sing it from the rooftops. We want to say it out loud. And there's a science to it also, because there's a way in which sound vibration is creative. In fact, in one of his writings, our founder Acharya points out that if you want to build a skyscraper building, first thing you do is think about it and then you talk about it. He points out that all the ingredients to build a skyscraper, which are what, by the way? Any structural engineers in here? Where's a structural engineer when you need one? What do you need to build a skyscraper? Name 5 ingredients.
Usually concrete, steel, and glass.
Concrete, steel, and glass are all here on the planet. Thank you. Give him a hand. You didn't know he was a structural engineer, did you? So you can talk to him afterwards if you want to build something. So there's a way in which the concrete, steel, and glass already exists. But when you speak about it, it comes together in one place. And we have proof of how the world goes on in that way. During the pandemic, nobody could go anywhere, but still things went on. And all they did was get on Zoom and talk about it. And so there's a way in which whatever we speak has a consequence. There's a series of events that unfold from any of our speaking. But the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the quintessential teachings of Bhakti Yoga, says, Iti murtya vidanena yankanamurtima murtikam yajite yajya purusham sasamya darshana puman. That a person who sees things correctly and sees the whole picture of the world and how it all comes together and why we're in whatever situation we're in now, knows that the perfection of speaking and chanting is to repeat the names of the Supreme. And the verse points out that there's a word in Sanskrit, murti. Murti means form, but it also means difficulty. So what the verse says is that in order to see the form of God, it's difficult, but if you chant the names of God, then it becomes amurti, not difficult. In fact, you can have direct access to the Supreme anywhere. There's an old saying or a story I heard once about somebody who was thirsty, and they inquired from somebody about getting a glass of water to quench their thirst. And the first person that he met answered that there's water in the clouds, help yourself. And then he met somebody else who said, there's water in the flash flood. It could come at any time, so you can help yourself to that. And then a third person said, well, there's water in the ground because there's an aquifer under the ground, so why don't you just dig a hole? You can get a glass of water from there. And these parallel various ideas of coming in contact with God. One is Well, God's in heaven. Well, how am I going to get there? And how would I connect to a God that's far away? And the flash flood means there are various incarnations of avatars that come to the world, but how are you going to land at the right time and place to meet that person? And the third is the idea of the yogis who might calm their minds and look inwardly, and after purifying their minds, their senses, learning how to sit for long periods of time, over many, many years, they may be able to perceive the form of God. That's like digging a well to get a glass of water. However, when we chant the holy name of the Lord, which is a murtikam, then it's like water in the palm of your hand. You can just take it and quaff it immediately because it comes to us directly. And this was the teaching of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who's the actual founder of the Hare Krishna movement. He told everybody, he went door to door in villages barefoot. He was a sannyasi, a monk. And he would tell people that you can have direct access yourself here with your family in your home, or wherever you may be, by chanting this mantra. And he said that all of this same power of God, there's no difference at all between Krishna and his name. And that by repeating the name, especially with a humble heart and a mood of offering service, that you can have this direct experience of the Supreme. So this is the simple aspect of the Krishna conscious movement. In fact, it's a movement started by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who not only gave us a process for self-realization, he also gave us a vision mission statement so we could have some work to do in our life that would make a difference in the world. Would you like to know what the vision mission is?
Yes.
Okay. About 12 people said yes. Everybody else close your ears.
Yes.
It is that in every town and village of the world, people would have an opportunity to experience what it's like to directly connect with God through chanting his names in a group like this. So how fortunate are we that we're representing Laguna Beach, California. Come on. But we can also branch out and we can go to, what's that empire called around here?
Inland Empire.
Inland Empire. Everybody in the Inland Empire should know about the chanting of Hare Krishna. So logically from here, we should go door to door there, right?
Yes.
Say yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And where else? Give a shout out to your area here. Where do you live?
Fullerton.
Fullerton. Let's hear it for Fullerton. Should we go to Fullerton and teach people how to chant Hare Krishna? He said yes. Okay, you can lead it up. We'll follow you. This was the vision of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He said this is so important and it's so transformative, and that one person at a time, and then one family at a time, one city at a time, the whole world can be transformed from the inside out, which is the only way it can happen. So this chanting is esoteric and it's practical at the same time. Let's try a little bit of Mahamantra chanting. When my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, spoke, and when he wrote, he gave analogies, because I've always found direct access to philosophical ideas, making them practical and approachable. And one of the most profound analogies that he gave several times, that's very dear to my heart, it's something that saves me from the turmoil of the mind and the multitude of decisions that I have to make in various ways. Of course, there's a principle called Occam's razor, which means usually the simplest answer is the best, fewest assumptions. It goes goes directly to the point. And the analogy that he gave was of a tiny screw. And he said, a tiny screw, if you find it somewhere, for instance, if you were given community service for some reason, and you had to pick up trash along the 405 freeway, and you came along and found a tiny little screw in the dust, and you picked it up. If you wanted to put it in your pocket and sell it, you might try on eBay, but I'm doubtful if you get anything for it. And my teacher said that the tiny screw, when it's detached from the machine for which it was made, in which it held something together that allowed the machine to work harmoniously, it's glorious. It has a very deep purpose, and what's more, it's highly valuable because of its placement and what it's doing there, its service. Well, when it's detached from the machine and it's lying on the 405 freeway, you can't get a penny for it. What's more, I don't think there will be pennies anymore. So one day I was walking on an old logging road, actually in the middle of nowhere in Northern California, and I felt something underfoot, and I picked it up, and it was a little tiny screw. And the analogy came into my mind about the screw, and I brushed it off a little bit, and I found myself feeling compassion for the screw. Like, what happened to your glorious engagement in some machine? I had no idea what the machine was, but I did feel sorry for it for a moment. And then I felt sorry for myself, because existentially I suddenly saw myself standing there in a world where I don't know how I came in, I don't know how I'm going out. And as Kṛṣṇa says in the Bhagavad Gita, he gives an analogy himself of a banyan tree that's convoluted, and we're in the middle of it, and it's so vast that we can't see where it begins or ends. That's this universe. We can't see much. Nor do we know how we came into it, nor do we know when we're going to leave or where we're going to go when we leave. And I thought about my own situation, and I felt kindred with that little screw for a moment. So much so that I put it in my pocket, and I brought it home, and I keep it on my desk. And I look at it from time to time and remember the teaching of my spiritual master. And he said, the simple fact is that if we reconnect with our ultimate purpose of life, which is to serve Krishna, to serve God, then we become inestimably valuable in that very moment, that very second. You don't have to wait for anything. You don't need a degree. You already are something that is so glorious. And all that's needed is a reconnection through service. And it can be simple service. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Neha Bhikramanashosti pratyavaya navidite swalpamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahatopaya. Even if you give the tiniest gesture with a humble heart towards God, then you're reconnected in that very instant. And it's never forgotten. This is a grateful universe we live in. It's a magnanimous, a universe that is accommodating in every aspect. And that all comes from a person, says the Bhagavad Gita. If you read the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, you'll find the title Purushottam Yoga, which means that reconnection with that personality who's behind everything, and whose magnanimity can be experienced in this world, and with whom, when we connect through service, we feel immediately satisfied and happy again. So in a song, written by one of the great saints who is a representative of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Who's scheduled? Because I'm apt to not notice the clock.
That's not what I did.
Well, no, he gave me options. I'm just saying it was a housekeeping matter. In a song by one of the saints, and we say saint, is a saint that is easily relatable in the modern world. His name was Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And he had a family, a robust family. And he was also a high court judge. Meanwhile, he wrote over 100 books on bhakti. Each one of them is so dense that if you spent a lifetime reading, you'd never come to the end. You could write a PhD thesis on every chapter or every paragraph. It was so deep. He was recognized as a luminary amongst intellectuals and a spiritual giant. And he wrote thousands of songs. And every one of them was a hit. Every one of them that when you listen to, you can't stop singing it because it's so beautiful. And what's more, it also tells a story or gives an instruction that we can follow to be perfectly situated in our lives. Does that sound like the kind of song we want to hear? Yes. I mean, there's a lot of songs in the world. This is one of the points that the teacher of the Srimad Bhagavatam brings up at the very beginning. He said, there's so many songs you can sing in this world. People are singing many different kinds of songs. There's lots of radio stations, more nowadays than ever before. He said, but there's one channel you can tune into and one song you can sing that will satisfy your heart. And that is the song about Krishna and the spiritual world. And in one of the songs that Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote, which is a very lively song, and it has a beat to it that you can't stop dancing to. And that once you hear it, then you can't stop remembering it, and when you go to work, oh sorry to bring it up. You'll be walking down the hallway to your cubicle or wherever you work, and you'll have a spring in your step, and I will say, well, what happened to you? It was over the weekend. I was at that jewel of a temple by the sea, the Laguna Beach Temple at Iskon Beach. Rules off my tongue, my hometown. And in the song, which is called Radha Krishna Gold, he gives this line that you can. It's too long for a tattoo. Well, maybe not. But if you remember it at any time, and you remember the tiny screw and the meaning behind that, you can instantly transform your life at any time. So he says, in one of the lines of his song, Jiv Krishna Das, E Vishwas, Kole To Ardukona. So, Tuk, everyone say Tuk. Tuk means, in a general way, it means misery, unhappiness. And he says, if you remember, or just admit, or say to the world that I'm a servant of Krishna, he said, then you'll have no more dukkha. How does that sound? Okay, two people said okay. And then one comes up, and now the front row's rallying a little bit. Would you like to say it?
Yes.
Let's just try it, see how it feels. Just close your eyes. And if you want to, this is totally voluntary. Put your hands together like this. Close your eyes and just say, I am a servant of Krishna.
I am a servant of Krishna.
And dear Lord Krishna, please engage me in your service. And how do you feel now?
Great. Very good.
Better, right? It's hard to feel better in this world because one thing leads to another, and there's a constant stream of confounding situations that, at least I'll speak for myself, I find myself in. But when I transform my life by saying I'm a servant of Krishna, then I really do feel properly aligned, and I naturally feel happy. And that leads me to one more analogy that Krishna himself gives in the Bhagavad Gita, which I find to be very helpful. Can you stand one more analogy?
Yes.
Okay, that was 50%. The other?
Yes.
So, he says in the 5th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, text number 10, we should sing this one again. Give him a drum beat. Brahmanyadaya karmani And he says that when you work in the world, if you offer what you're doing to Krishna, to God, then you're not besmirched by the result of that work. It means that you don't become implicated in the world the way you do when you try to claim it for yourself and you try to hold on to the result yourself. It gets complicated. Even in the tax system here in America, I mean, it's changing so fast I'll have to consult somebody. I think what I'm saying is still valid. But people who have money generally say they don't have any. Don't they? Yes. Accountants, who are in here? If you have money, if you have a lot of money, you generally line it up so you say, I don't have any money. And when it comes tax time, you say, well, it's not my money. It belongs to my company. I just use the stuff in the service of the company. Don't you do that? Go ahead, you can admit it. Rich people, go ahead, say it. And it's the same in the universe. Krishna says, Brahmanidaya karmani sangam chatva karotya. He says that if you give the results of whatever you're doing, or in a more positive sense, you offer everything that you do to God when you do it as service, then he said you're not implicated. You don't have to pay tax in the universe. And then he gives the analogy of a lotus flower. Have you ever seen a lotus flower up close?
Yes.
Raise your hand if you've seen it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. How did you get that? Where did you see? Oh, it's Southern California. Right? I've seen them in Japan. Osaka Botanical Gardens in the summertime. It's hot and very moist there at that time of year, but there's a great treat that you can have if you go to the Osaka Botanical Gardens, because they have 28 species of lotus flowers, and each one of them is pristinely kept in a beautiful little pond. And you can go there and commune with those lotus flowers and remember this verse from the Bhagavad Gita, in which Krishna says, the lotus, which is called Padmaja. Ja means to be born, and Padma means mud. And this most beautiful of all flowers, arguably the most beautiful in the world, is born out of mud. What's more, it grows up through the water, it alights on the top of the water, and it stays there, and it's regularly splashed by water. But then Krishna says it's never touched by water. So how does that happen? It's because it's impervious to the water due to its own constitution. And he gives this example that if we live in this world, and in our heart, everything we're doing, oh, and also on the spreadsheet, is for God, then we're not implicated in this world as much as the lotus, which lives in the water, grows from the mud. It's never touched by the mud, or is able to shed the mud and show its pristine beauty. And the water also never sticks. And it's uncanny how the water beads up and just runs off, isn't it? And so we can also, and this one could definitely be a tattoo, and I'm not getting commissions for tattoos. Live like a lotus. If you remember the lotus flower, and when you find yourself assailed by obligations and situations in which you feel overwhelmed, you can remember this simple instruction that Krishna gives in the Bhagavad Gita, and that is, offer it to me, offer the result to me. So I did say that we would have a few reflections from the weekend. We're still in the weekend, so it could be from tonight's class, or from if anybody attended during yesterday's festival. If you had an experience, if you saw something, heard something, felt something, please let us know right now. Don't ask a question, because then it'll turn into a long, another one of my diatribes. But if you have something you want to share with everybody else from the weekend, this is a good time. We have about 7 minutes. What did you see, feel, hear? In a spiritual assembly, it's really important to share what your heart is, and it's a pretty safe environment here. Yes?
For me, a best moment to be here. Yeah. Best moment.
The best moment of the weekend?
No, here.
Just right now, right here. Thank you very much. Let's have a few more. Sharing means caring. Salvation Army. Okay. Yes.
I think for me also, like today's lecture has been one of the best moments, because you have summarized Gita so well. That prior to my reading Gita, I thought we should just indulge in good karma, but the concept of karma without reaction. So that is the beauty that you have shared now, that we can live in this world and still have no reaction for our karma. That is the very gist of Gita.
Thank you for so eloquently sharing. What's bugging you in your life that you'd like to unload right here, right now? Any complaints about the world, where the world's going? Don't get political, bro. Go ahead.
Thank you, Maharaj, for the class. Last night when you were giving your class in Long Beach, I felt like you looked me right in the eye and said, you really don't know how much time you have left. And I've been thinking about it ever since you said that. And for the next 108 days, I'm going to really try to purify myself so I can maybe get ready to be initiated.
A thought, a feeling, an image from the weekend, whatever you can share. Okay, I'm going to count down from 5 and start calling on people. Yeah, please.
It's okay.
Yeah, good.
So, Prabhu, thank you very much for your speech. But I would like to align with your thought also, like not align. I do practice, and it's hard what you told to release the fruits to Krishna and just work. But every morning, I run a corporate, small corporate too, and every morning there's employee issue or something, but always I think of Krishna. This is Krishna's practice, or Krishna's work, I just go and do it.
See, we don't know who's sitting in here. And when you hear from others, then you get a great appreciation for where their heart is, right? Yeah? This is your chance. Yes, go ahead.
I really appreciate the example of the screw, the compassion to the screw. It was so heart-touching. So thinking about how I am a screw, and I have so much focus, and everyone else around me the same way. So it's only a matter of placement, being in the right place. And I also remember yesterday you were mentioning, you were singing another hit, your job. And so you mentioned how it's important wherever within this world, stay healthy, do whatever is needed, but for the purpose of Jivjana, being enlightened, being awake spiritually. So I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. 14 and under who wants to share? You gotta be under 14. If you're under 14, raise your hand. I'm going to look at your driver's license. The under 14-year-olds are not raising their hands. Okay, we'll take two more reflections from this side of the room. Yes.
Maharaj, I would like to thank you so much for bringing me into a deeper place in my japa. You helped me understand the intimacy that is there inside of the japa, and how when we are in kirtan, it's like being in the Vaiśeṣika, and that has completely, I'm not able to express what that has done for me, but it has changed my life.
Thank you very much. All the way to the back. Near Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, about to punish Marai. Where was the verse from?
It's a Sanskrit one. It's called Venkatesha.
Is it? Hold that a little closer.
Yeah, it's called Venkatesha Stotram, which is
Venkatesha Stotram.
Yeah. So it's the second verse of it.
Just see, we have a Sanskrit who's so devoted to God that he memorized this prayer and he brings it out to us tonight as a blessing. Thank you very much. I thank Tukaram Prabhu and this whole illustrious family for hosting all of us here. I'd like to thank all of the servants here at ISKCON Laguna Beach for opening these doors so we can all come in here and celebrate these festivals that stay in our hearts forever. And I'd like to thank all of you for coming here tonight, and I'll never forget this time we had together. And we'll have an opportunity in the next 30 seconds, if you want, to stand up and we'll do a short kirtan, and then they'll presumably be prasadam, right? I'll make a prayer to end. Dear Srila Prabhupada, dear Sri Panchatattva, if you so desire, please remind us that spiritual life is very simple. It means asking for service to you and engaging in whatever service we can muster at any time. Please engage us in your service. Thank you for considering our request. Everyone agrees with this prayer in whole or in part. Please unmute and say Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna!
The best part is a Hare Krishna dance party. And we're going to have right now, this is a dance floor. So we'll open it up for dancing.